So this is episode 26 of Both Laugh, the Dying Scene Quarantine podcast, show, whatever it is that we're calling it. And sadly, embarrassingly, it's the first one to feature a drummer as the guest.
I'm all right with that. That's cool.
Korey, how are you? Like I said, pleasure to meet you this way. This is cool.
Yeah, likewise, man. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm doing all right. You know, I was just kind of hanging out, having a day off today. And I just got home to my house and there was a giant foot-long lizard like cruising in my door, and I don't do bugs or lizard. I'm like scared. Okay. And so I'm like grabbing my cats like, hey, like, can you do something about this? And yeah, nothing. They're just like, oh, cool, lizard, see ya. I'm going to go back to sleep. And yeah, so I left it for my wife and I came to the studio and I'm going to do an interview and leave it be.
So you live where? Southern California?
Yeah, I live in San Diego.
Are lizards normal there?
You know, I would like to say like not very often, but yeah, I've had a few run-ins with lizards and I'm good. Like I had one in my shoe one time and I was trying to fit my foot in. I'm like, what is going on here? And then I reach in and whatever was in there moved, happened to be a lizard. I was screaming like a little girl and my friends were making fun of me still to this day. So
I thought lizards were like a South Florida thing. I didn't know they were everywhere.
This one is massive. It's at least, it's got to be a foot long. It's like it has a really long tail and it was sitting at the door and I was like trying to sweep it away and then it ran in the house and I'm like, oh great, now what am I going to do?
What the hell is it?
I don't know. I don't know. And then my stinking cats, like couldn't be more lazy. Just come on, guys. Come on. That's what else do? You sleep, you eat. You know, I have to clean your litter box. The least you can do is just do this. You know, like, whatever.
I live just north of Boston, and so it's like 40 degrees here right now. Maybe not even that, but which is cold for people from outside of here. But we don't have lizards. We don't have like the sky on fire. We don't have hurricanes. We rarely have hurricanes. We don't have like it barely even snows anymore because of climate change. So
right.
This is like ideal. We have squirrels. That's about it.
Man, I would gladly trade a squirrel for a lizard. I don't know what it is, man. Since I was a little kid, I've just been a little nervous around bugs, a little nervous around squirrels, and I'm no chance I'm picking it up and getting it out. No, like
wait
till it ran in the house, and I'm like, great. Now I live with a foot-long lizard. You know, it's just whatever.
my brother sees a spider and he wants to burn the apartment down.
That's kind of me.
I can imagine. Yeah. Listen, wait till you have a squirrel chew his way through your screen and get into your pantry because you think a spider or a lizard's fun to get out of your house. Try a squirrel.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Maybe it's a California thing. I don't know, man. But ever since I was a little kid, I'm like, yeah, I'm scared. I can't do it. I can't. I literally texted the landlord like, "You guys good at catching lizards? Cause I don't know what to do here."
That's a riot.
So yeah, man, crazy.
Well, you grew up in Southern California. Let's start sort of at the beginning because I feel like Island Bop is sort of an album that accumulates all of like the Korey Horn experience.
Yeah.
You grew up in Southern California?
Yeah, born and raised. I was born in Long Beach and, you know, grew up in kind of the suburbs in Murrieta, Lake Elsinore, Temecula area. And then kind of migrated to North San Diego and, spent a lot of like my career as a drummer, you know, like, starting out playing in LA in bands from LA. And so I considered myself like from LA for a long time. Cause I was born like in Long Beach, which is, you know, LA County. And, so all the bands that I played in were based in LA. So Aggrolites and Rhythm Doctors before that. And then like, all the other bands, whoever else, Suedehead, Sharp Shock, Hepcat, like, yeah, all based in LA. Whenever I would tour, people were like, where are you from? I'm like, I'm from LA. And then when I moved to San Diego, it was like, even though I'm in North San Diego, it's like, I claim San Diego now. So yeah, it's like, but yeah, born and raised in California, SoCal. I always tell people, you can tell by my accent, you know, that I'm born and raised. I don't sound like a typical black dude from, Atlanta or something.
Yeah,
I
right.
talk like a California dude. So
Right. Mileage wise, for the East Coasters, what's the difference between like Long Beach and North San Diego?
it's about an hour away, maybe
Okay.
depending on traffic, 2 hours away. Both on the coast, but you'd be surprised at how different the vibe is from San Diego. Actually, Long Beach is probably the best spot in LA, in my opinion. It's like, as far as the people go, the music and culture and stuff like that. But it's probably the most similar to San Diego.
Doesn't everybody say their spot in LA is the best spot in LA?
I know, it's true. Yeah, everybody's gonna say Eagle
But
Rock or like, who knows what, like some hipster place. I can't do LA. LA is like lizards for me. Okay, like I'll do it if I have to, but I kind of want to just stay away.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've spent a fair amount of time in LA. I get it, but every time I go there, I always tell people. And I by any means, anybody who lives in LA and all that, I'm not trying to like diss your area, but every time I go to LA, if I'm working or I have an audition or something, I always feel like no matter where you go, you're on an audition. So, you're trying to get coffee and people are like sizing you up and like, well, look at your jeans. Like, what are you? It's like, dude, I just want coffee. So that's my vibe with LA, where it's like, dude, I don't want to feel like I'm just on an audition all the time. I just want to do whatever it is I got to do out here and then go back to San Diego where people are normal.
Yeah. That's the thing I hadn't really thought about, but yeah, that sort of makes sense.
Yeah. So I think that's a lot of the reason why I still work with bands from LA, and I'll, like I said, before COVID, I would do whatever I could. If I had a session or something out there, I would go out there and do it. But yeah, I don't know if I'll live in LA. I've never lived actually in LA. I always just, like I said, I lived in Riverside County. So, different, like more inland. And then, San Diego is like where I feel like, man, I could just work. I don't have to feel like I'm being judged all the time. I can just do what I do,
So which scene did you sort of grew up in the LA scene playing drums and whatnot?
Yeah. So I grew up in the ska scene. Really loved ska music when I was a kid. That goes way back to like my uncles have always been into scooters and into ska and reggae music. And so I was like a huge fan of two-tone. Got into my favorite band of all time is probably the English Beat. And so just got into that and the Specials and Fishbone and Selector and all these two-tone bands just like changed my life, when I was 12 years old. And went to my first show in LA, saw the Skeletones and another band called Meal Ticket. So I just got into ska, and then I got into like some like I got into punk too when I was in high school and stuff, and was into like straight edge, style hardcore punk stuff and all that stuff. So just kind of typical teenager stuff. But ska music and reggae music has really stayed with me my whole life. And then I started playing in ska and like early reggae bands, and then it just kind of furthered my interest in that music,
I met my wife at a Selector show. So
really?
Yeah, like
that's cool.
Freshman year of college, the Selector and a couple of Big D and the Kids Table, I think, opened because it was a Boston area show. So what's funny is I always tell this story. Me and my wife went on our first date to go see Hepcat. Oh, okay. And it was like, I've always loved that band and everything. But then we went on our first date. They played Dance With Me, grabbed her hand, started dancing. I know I'm such a charmer, but anyways, we had a really great time. And then like, I think our 5th year anniversary, I was on tour with Hepcat, and then she flew out on our anniversary, and then they played that song dedicated to us, except I was behind the drums. Yeah, right. So it was a really cool thing though, to be like, to have our first date and then have it come full circle. It was pretty cool. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. So what was the first band that you played with that you realized like, this is what I want to do? Like, how early did that start? That being a professional musician?
it didn't start for me professionally. It started just as a kid playing, every high school kid's band, where it was just me and my buddies, and I wanted to play ska, and the guitar player wanted to play, punk, and the bass player was into Oingo Boingo, and like we were trying to, it was just like, and it's literally how it went down, and then our other friend like bought a trombone at a thrift store, so we're like, well, maybe you can learn how to play it, and it just we just kind of did that, and then it was like a mix of everything, where that's really what, well, then I went to the same guy that was into Oingo Boingo. His brother was his older brother was like the cool high school kid, and we joined a band with him, and that's when I played my first show, and it was like a total alternative, like almost like a Cure like cover band kind of thing.
Oh wow.
And so I knew then that I really wanted to play ska. I really loved that music. It was what I was into. This was in the 90s, and so it was like I really wanted to play traditional ska, and I don't know, play like Let's Go Bowling or something. And so we started a band called the Scommodores, like the Commodores, but ska. Yeah. And like,
I'm surprised that, like, I had never heard, that's an obvious name for a ska band.
I know,
and I never thought of it. That's awesome.
And and so that kind of led to it was actually a pretty good like third wave ska band, and for high school kids we played pretty well. We had some good songs, and that's what kind of started the fire, where that band merged to another traditional, like a pure traditional ska band called Kingston 10. That was like an LA based band. And that's really how I got my start in that kind of music. Is Kingston 10 started playing some actual shows, and that's when we actually had a nice scene here in LA and Riverside and San Diego. So we got to play, really great sold out shows like at the Whiskey and at the Roxy and like all these places, and we were still young kids, probably 20, 21, 22 years old. And so yeah, that's where it was like, okay, I love this music. I'm learning how to play it correctly, and just from listening to it and studying other, peers and, my friends that play this music. And then so that band, I still played in that band for a long time. And then I started kind of getting recognized at shows from other bands. And then that ended up happening where I was able to join the Rhythm Doctors, which was like the predecessor, I think, to the Aggrolites, or the band before the Aggrolites. And, and so, yeah, Kingston 10 led to Rhythm Doctors, and then Rhythm Doctors was where I really got a taste of like, man, I'm in like the buzz band of LA right now. This is like we're playing, like we're traveling to like San Francisco and doing Bay Area gigs and stuff like that. And that's when it was like we're headlining shows, and we're it was like really cool. That's when it was like, okay, this is what I do. I play Jamaican style music. And so.
Are you self-taught as a drummer, or did you take lessons growing up, or?
It was a little bit of both. So, so professionally, I didn't start playing, ska or reggae. Professionally, I started, believe it or not, playing country western music, and blues. And so it was just, it was a thing where I was like 14 or 15 years old. I wanted to be at the ska show or the punk show. And my dad was kind of like, hey, you have a gig, you need to take care of your gig. And so there I was playing train beats, for a country artist.
Yeah.
And,
how would you get gigs like that as a 14, 15-year-old?
I don't really know. It was like, I think it was, a friend of my dad's, and he was just kind of like, yeah, I just moved to town from Nashville and I need a drummer. And my dad was kind of like, yeah, my son plays. And it wasn't like, I was super, I couldn't go into any clubs, any bars or anything. Like my dad had to go with me, and then I had to stand outside on the break and but it was like, I when I'm a 14-year-old kid, I don't want to play this kind of music, but I just, so yeah, I think that was really where I had to learn songs like the correct way. I had to learn this style of music and play it correctly to keep my job. And then that led to me taking lessons. But before all of that, I was self-taught 100%. And then I started taking lessons regularly with a teacher he was a local teacher in my town. And he ended up being like a really famous jazz teacher. His name was Art Rodriguez. He passed away, but he was like the drummer for Manhattan Transfer and BB King and like all these different people. And so, you know, he was a great drummer. He was an okay teacher, but he's a great drummer. So I took a lot of lessons with him for a long time. And then that didn't really help me though in the reggae and ska world. It kind of helped me more in reading charts and you know, I don't know, simple like fundamentals with drumming. But I always had a love for jazz, and you know, my dad is a jazz singer, so we always had good music in our house, and that's kind of what I guess led to my style of playing versus I would say most of my career though I've been self-taught, and then then it just turned into like years of touring and, you know, having to kind of be a chameleon to stay working, you know, as a drummer. So be on tour with Aggrolites for 6 weeks and playing reggae every single night, and then coming home and having to play a rock gig or a country gig or something and sound authentic in that style, or get on a session and have to do the same thing. Like last night I was playing country, but now I have to, you know, record some pop tune or something and make it sound authentic. So I think to answer the question, I know it's long-winded, but it was mostly from just being like thrown in the fire and having to adapt. That was the most schooling I had, you know, was just to have to be forced to play this kind of music that I don't really like, but I have to do it.
Would you rebel against that part of it at all? Because I know, like, growing up playing guitar and whatever, like every other 40-year-old with a flannel shirt, I grew up playing guitar. Right. But you rebel against certain kinds of music, and obviously I'm not a professional musician, so perhaps I shouldn't have. But do you rebel against, like, I just want to play my music. I don't want to play country music. I don't want to play pop music.
Oh, that was me all the time. Like I would have these heated arguments with my dad as a 14-year-old kid that wanted to wear Doc Martens on a country gig and, you know, wear my flight jacket and stuff.
Right.
It was like, you can't do this. This is your job. This is part of being a man. You know, you got to get out there and play your gig. And when you go home, you can wear all that stuff. And I would be all pissed off, and I would want to wear, you know, there's some footage somewhere of me playing in a wife beater because I didn't want to wear the button, you know, or not flannel, but the plaid like country western shirt. Yeah. And then I wouldn't wear a cowboy hat. Like it was like, you know, I just felt like it was so corny. And, you know, at that age, 15, I played in that band, I think from when I was 14 until I was probably 17 or 18. That time, you know, that's when you're finding your identity and you know, and so I was like, man, I'm into ska music and that's what I want, you know. It sounds funny now, but it's like, you know, this is how I dress, and I don't want to be like my friends to see me dressing like country western. That's not my style. And it was totally a cool band too. It was like totally like traditional country, you know. He had like a real like variety show with like all these old singers, and it wasn't like lame country at all. It was totally like, now I would take that gig, you know. It's totally cool. But when I was a kid, it was just like, this is the lamest thing ever. Like I shouldn't be doing this, and you know, so I totally tried to rebel against it, and I try to be a team player because I knew it was a gig, but the singer was really patient with me, and he was always like, you know, I was still the young kid in the band. And so his musicians were these old timers that have been doing it for years. And they're like, who is this kid? You know, like, why just get a real drummer, you know? And it really groomed me. It really helped me a lot, you know?
But that also shows people that you're, even as 14, 15 and maybe wanting to rebel, you're still professional. Like you're still a drummer. You're still somebody who wants to actually do it and take it seriously.
Yeah, there was a lot of, I mean, that was the biggest learning experience for me, you know, besides touring, playing in that band, you know, and really making it sound authentic was a big, you have to be disciplined. You have to, you know, do your homework and just learn how to, you know, do the music justice. That's a big lesson for me that, like, you know, I try to teach as well that, you know, it may not be the gig you want. These big pop gigs, a lot of these guys don't want to play that kind of music, but they have to. That's what we do as musicians, you know.
Right. That's what pays the rent, unfortunately.
Exactly.
And it's a different style of playing for sure. You can probably do a lot more things playing reggae, playing punk rock, where it's a little bit more about the groove and the feel and the show than it is about, like, nobody pays attention to the drummer at the country gig unless he screws up, right? Unless he does something wrong.
And that was the main point. Exactly. That, like, there were certain things that you have to get right, like your side sticking thing. You have to have a clean, crisp sound. And I didn't know that, you know. And then, but yeah, it was having to refrain from, like, maybe you don't do a double bass drum fill for this, like in this traditional country song, you know. Maybe you do like a simple rudiment thing, and you know, it was doing stuff like that where I had to refrain from playing what I wanted to play or what I was into at the time, and you know, and do the music justice. Like, this is what it calls for, you know, making my drums sound, you know, I had the ultimate 90s sounding drums, you know, like the 311 sounding snare and like the high toms and all that stuff. And it's like, I didn't, you know, you can't, that's not the sound for that music, you know? And so having to adjust that kind of stuff, and, you know, that's the biggest learning curve. That was the biggest lesson learned for me, where when I finally started getting called back for those kind of gigs or getting called by other bands, is when I started getting that kind of stuff right, you know.
And that's all word of mouth stuff, right? That's, hey, Jim has played with you every Friday and he knows some other guy needs a drummer, so here.
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh, that's how it starts with, that's how it started with ska and reggae music too. And every pop gig or pickup gig I have was started like that. You know, I very rarely do auditions anymore, especially. I just don't like doing auditions. But most of the auditions I've done, I haven't gotten. It's all been from word of mouth, like, hey, you come highly recommended, or hey, you know, we're doing a tour, we need a drummer, or whatever, something like that. It's most of the time that's how it works for me.
So does it land differently on you though when you're getting recommended by ska musicians, by reggae musicians, versus by, you know, the guy who does country Thursdays down at the local bar? You know what I mean? Because that's your people. Yeah,
I'm way more like selective when it comes to ska and reggae. I won't just take any gig for that kind of stuff. And I hate to say that on the record, but it's the truth. I just feel like from the work I've done in that genre of music, I've kind of, you know, I don't want to sound arrogant or anything, but I've tried to make a legacy in as far as what I do in this scene. And so I'm pretty adamant on what work I take and what work I don't. Normally if a band is calling me for a tour, it gets established pretty quickly, like whether this is something I can do or not. It's normally like, hey man, we want to see if you can just like come on tour with us and eat burritos and like play like bars. I'm kind of like, it sounds fun, but that's not really what I do. Like, I have friends that I already do that with at home, and you know, it's but if it's a band like Hepcat, where, you know, when they initially called me, it was kind of like a lot different. It's a lot more professional, where it's like, hey, we have a tour, these are the dates, this is the stipulations, this is what we need, you know, and then I can go back and say, hey, yeah, this is what I would typically get for a tour like this, and you know, we can work it out and stuff like that.
Does that get when that started happening with bands like Hepcat, bands that you liked and respected, or musicians you liked and respected, does that sort of feel surreal to you? When,
oh man,
like, not only they know who I am, but they want me to play with them? That's got to be awesome.
Dude, especially Hepcat.
Yeah.
I was like I had to be careful what I said, because like when I got off the phone, I was like, I would do this for free.
Yeah,
like, I'm telling my wife, Hepcat just called me to do a tour with them, and like I had to play hardball with like one of my all-time favorite bands.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It's so I'm glad that didn't happen early in my career, because I would have been, you know, selling myself out for, you know, just to play with a band that I like, you know. But I've had a couple of those situations, you know. Well, one that happened like probably over the last maybe 2 years. Dave from Dave, gosh, man, I can't. Well, I'm so bad with names. Dave, my favorite band in the world, Dave from the English Beat, called me to start playing drums with English Beat.
Wow.
And I was like playing with the idea of like, yeah, all right, like my favorite band, like I would love to.
Right.
But I kind of had to. It kind of fizzled out. I don't know why it didn't come to fruition. I think I was leaving on tour when he hit me up, and I said, when I get back, or maybe they were leaving on tour, and he said, when we get back from this tour, we're going to hit you up. We'll start rehearsals. And I was like, great, it sounds good. And then that went through, and it didn't. They never called me back. And then I didn't go, hey man, I'm just checking in. Yeah, I was kind of like, hey, you know, I kind of want to keep this as my favorite band. You know, like I love them. I love what he does, and I love, you know, I've always loved that band, and I hate getting to know one of your favorite bands and then it changing the way you look at them, you know. And not that that's happened with like Hepcat or anything. Those guys are still my homies, and I love playing with them. But that one, I was like, this one's a special one for me. I'm gonna keep this one. I'm just gonna keep being a fan and not being a workmate, you know.
Because then you learn how the sausage is made, and you know.
Yeah. And I just and so I was kind of okay with my decision to just let it go and not, you know, just not go down that road with them. Yeah. So, but yeah, it was a couple times that's been like, man, I can't believe it, you know. And it's still, I kind of get that it's still a small scene. Ska is not like, you know, it's not like I'm getting a call for Radiohead or something. And
yeah, right.
And so it's, you know, I have to kind of tell myself that too, like, hey, I know I like this band a lot, but you know, this is also my livelihood. So let's try to keep it, I don't know, keep that in perspective, and you know, do it if I can, but if I can't, be okay with it, you know.
I have to say that I was texting with a mutual acquaintance of ours about that you were going to be on the show today. That's Sammy K. And he was like, Korey is like legitimately one of the best to ever do it in this scene. So
that's crazy, man.
So that's pretty cool. So that's pretty cool.
I appreciate that. That's awesome.
So let's talk about Shuffle and Bang. Like before we started recording, obviously I mentioned how I got through maybe halfway through the fourth song before I had to email the press guy back and be like, this is a really good album. Like, thank you for sending.
Oh man, that's so cool.
This is awesome. So I understand that it was sort of a long process to get Island Bop out there. What's the story behind that? Because it's you and your dad, for people that don't know.
Yeah. So this project has been kind of on my mind for a long time. Like I'm a huge fan of Jump with Joey. One of my all-time favorite bands, another one. And I've worked with Joey before, worked with Mike Boydo, who's from that band. Those are like, I just love what they do. I love their attention to like Latin jazz and you know, straight ahead jazz, bebop jazz, but then mixing, you know, mixing world music, mixing Jamaican music, you can hear all their influences in that music. So I've always wanted to have a band like that. And I don't know why we've never done it. I don't know why I've never done it with my dad. So we basically 2 years ago, my company Drum Brigade had a drum event, and I had to play. And I always thought, if I have to do like any kind of clinic or any kind of, you know, drum event where I'm the featured person, I feel like putting together a ska jazz band would be the ticket. That's what I need to do. And so we had a thing after a music trade show. We had an after party, and I had to perform. So I was like, let's put together, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put together like a combo, like a jazz combo, and we're going to play ska. And then I was like, hey, you know, with my dad's jazz band, we've done Naima before. And just on a whim, we decided, hey, let's play it reggae. And so I said, hey, Dad, you want to do Naima with us at this event? And he's like, yeah, heck yeah. My dad's like game for anything, like any opportunity. He's like, yeah, heck yeah, I'm there. And so we did it. It was cool. And everybody just, the band loved it. They're like, we should keep doing this. And I'm like, yeah, you never know. We'll see. My dad, oh man, we got to keep doing this, man. And I'm like, yeah, I know. So I'm like, why don't we record it? Let's record Naima. Maybe we'll do like a couple other songs and see. So we ended up recording 4 songs, 3 that made it on the album. And it was awesome. And we're like, let's do 4 more. So we did 4 more. We're like, maybe we'll put out 2 EPs or something down the road. Who knows? And then that we did that. We're like, let's just do another session. We started coming up with more arrangements. Let's do another one. We did another one. And it was great. And so that's how we have the album recorded. But then it was like, man, this is going to be, if we really want to do this right, we need some money, and we need some backing. We need to know how to do this right. I've done this a million times, started bands from the ground up, and it's a lot of work. So we had the recordings done, we had all that stuff done, but we had no backing. And so we started an Indiegogo campaign. People loved. So then me and my dad started playing off of our banter together, and making stuff up, making the videos funny and stuff like that. And then that kind of got a few people's attention, our friends and family and stuff. So we got some donations, but we only got about 10% of what we were looking for. Okay. It still was a big help. So that was a wrench in the situation where we didn't have the funds to finish it. And then my dad started having some major health problems. And so that was, we had to record the vocals 3 times because of his health issues. Wow. He just didn't have the energy. He just didn't have the voice that he usually has. And finally, on the 3rd time we did it, we got Rebecca Jade, who's she's a singer with Sheila E. And she's a wonderful singer here in town in San Diego. We brought her on to be a vocal producer and a vocal coach for my dad. And they both together, for some reason, they just both worked so well together. And so, yeah, he did it. He did himself justice on the last time recorded. That's the recording you have on the album. And then, that was, at least a year process. And then COVID hit and we're like, great. Right. So then we're like another, months down the road and we're just like, let's just release it. Let's just release it. Let's just figure it out. Let's just take out a loan. I don't care. Let's figure it out. And so we ended up having some funds come in to finish it. And we were just going to do it 100% on our own. And we were just going to, literally like CD Baby or Disc Makers or whatever. Right. We were just going to have him do it. And on a whim, seriously, one day I was just sitting in my studio and I was like, I've released a bunch of records, not me, but bands I played in have released a bunch of records on Pirates Press. Maybe I hit up Skippy and just be like, hey man, I don't know if you know who I am, but I've played in a bunch of bands that are on your label and, we're looking for some help. Like I didn't really have anything spelled out. It wasn't like, hey man, we're looking for this, this, and this. I just basically said, I have this project with my dad. It's like a ska jazz project. And we've taken the music that my dad does and his dad did. And we've put that together with what I do and came up with a ska jazz record, and it's called Island Bop. We have everything done. Even the artwork was done by Jay Bonner, who's an original Aggrolite guy. And I worked with a bunch of different people, Tim Armstrong and Jimmy Cliff. And so me and him are really good friends. We've toured the world together and, and worked together on a lot of different things. We asked him to do he was like, I'll just do it, man. And so I'm like, dude, that's awesome. So he did the artwork, and we just kind of totally DIY. Yeah. And then Skippy emailed back and he's just like, dude, of course I know who you are. He's like, we love all your bands. And like, we've met before, duh. Like, I'm like, I know, I just, I don't know. Right. And yeah, long story short, they were like, we want to put this out. And I was just like, really? Like you do? Like, I'm like, I didn't know if anybody would really get it the way that we get it, and it's really, it just totally came across. Like, it's so different for me because I've heard my dad sing since, I was since I was a little kid. And I've heard these songs, all like Blow Mr. Low and Sugar to Tea and Don't Go to Strangers, the opening acapella track that my dad did. All those songs I've heard me and my brother have heard my dad sing since forever, since forever. And then his dad sang those. My dad told me that he thought his dad was the singer on those songs.
Oh,
Like he
that's a
thought that
riot.
was the actual artist.
Yeah.
And so, you know, these songs go way back. And then there's other tunes on the album like I'm Insane by Joe Cuba. It's a Joe Cuba cover. That's like my grandpa. So my mom is Puerto Rican, and my grandpa growing up, my grandpa was always listening to, you know, old boogaloo and salsa records. And so that was one of the songs that we loved when we were little kids. You know, we just loved that record. And, you know, I was like, man, it'd be great to play this song. And my dad's like, yeah, we should do that, you know? And so it just came together. It took a long time, but now that it's done, it's come together in like the final hour, like so smoothly. And we, like Pirates Press, the way that they helped us to put this out. I was just talking to my dad today where, you know, we had our label Jet Setter that we were putting this out on. And the way that they were able to help us do that, like where instead of like us getting rid of Jet Setter and just putting it out on Pirates Press, they let us do like more of a partnership where we can keep our label and they can keep their label. And they've helped with like so much with promotion and giving us a solid product. The record is like so amazing, you know, and the quality control that they have and stuff like that. And just emails like all the time, like, hey, Korey, can you do this? Hey, Korey, we got this that's coming out. They put us on a compilation. And like, it's like, man, we couldn't have asked for anything more, you know. It was way above our expectations. So, you know, long process, but we're so happy that it came out. You know, we're so really like it is. So it's kind of emotional for us, you know.
I was going to say, how is it when you're holding that album for the first time,
man,
and it's like a piece of vinyl with your dad's name on it, your name on it, Jet Setter on it. Like Jet Setter looks great on the cover. That like it looks like a classic old jazz album. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how is that once you're actually holding on to it?
Man, it started with the test press. You know, my dad has sang in so many different bands and played with so many different musicians and even sat in with a lot of bands that I've played in. But for him to be on a vinyl record, you know, my dad's heyday was in the 70s. So it's like, and then the first thing you hear is his a cappella voice.
Right.
Man, it was I had to like take a second and just, when I got the test pressing, I put the needle on and I just had to stand there for a second and just kind of like just hold back tears almost, you know. It was really moving. And then for my dad, you know, my dad didn't even have a record player anymore. He gave me all his records and my brother. And so he went and bought a record player just so he can listen to our record. And awesome. He probably wouldn't want me to tell this on the air, but my mom told me that he put the needle on and sat there, listened to the whole record back to front. And then an hour later, he was still sitting in there. And my mom was like, what are you doing? And then he said he turned around and he was just full tears, crying. Like, I've only seen my dad cry maybe 3 times my whole life. Crying. And he said, you know, I've wanted to do something like this my whole career. And, you know, no one really understood what I was trying to say. And he's like, and I'm just so proud to have been able to put something out like this with my son, you know? And so it is, you know, not to get so sentimental, but it is something really special. You know, my dad is 64 years old. And, like I said, he's had health problems and stuff like that. And, it's something really, really emotionally special for us to be on a record together, a vinyl record together, and have our pictures on the cover. And, you know, we've had a few fans like ask for some signed copies, and to sign autographs with my dad is like, man. So if we're able to tour or play some shows overseas, you know, or something like that, that's the topper. That's like what we're hoping for, you know. But it's been a amazing, I think probably the biggest accomplishment for both of us, you know, no matter how big, you know, whatever big shows I've done or whatever record I've done, to put out our own record and, you know, is just, we couldn't have done it though without the people that have, you know, been a part of it.
And Pirates Press will only put out things that they believe in. It's, you know, and so for them to say, you know what, we want to put this out, or we'll put you on the One Flag. I forget the name of their compilation. I know what you're talking about, the One Flag or All Under, whatever. Like Skippy not only knows what he's doing when it comes to actually making a product and is sort of a visionary in that area, but he only puts out stuff that he likes too.
Yeah.
So So for Skippy to say that, it's like that stamp of approval. You know what I mean? Like
I noticed that, and it's kind of funny because I always feel like I have to give a disclaimer, you know, like with him, I was like, you know, I don't know if this is the right fit, you know, it's pretty jazzy, like these songs are jazz songs,
yeah.
and it's ska. I don't know if this kind of ska is really cool, like, you know, anymore. It's the music I love, but I'm 42 years old, you know, right. So it's like, but it wasn't like that at all. You know, I approached him with just maybe they can give us a good deal on pressing our records. Yeah. That's it. And what they did to help us was just like, we couldn't have asked. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to ask for what they've done for us, you know? So
and realistically, I think if he didn't like it, that's what he would have done. It's just giving you a deal on pressing a small batch of records or whatever and be like, hey, here you go. Here's your records. But he wants to put the pirate flag on it. So it really is like from what I know of Skippy, and we've talked a handful of times because he's a Massachusetts guy. So we've talked a handful of times over the years. He did this show earlier. I was doing these just through like Instagram Live, and he had a notoriously bad Wi-Fi feed. So he just kept freezing up. So we took a couple shots at it and talked for a long time, but he'll only put out stuff that he legitimately loves and believes in. So,
you know, it's cool too that for us, we didn't, this wasn't an album that we were shopping around and we were going to see who the best bidder is. It was like, for me, it's really special that, you know, they've thought enough about music that I've recorded on to put out, you know, not only this record, but, you know, they've put out a Suedehead record and Aggrolite records, and they've done a lot of stuff. And not only that, they've helped other bands that I've played in or albums that I've played on where they've helped with the pressing on those records. So for me, it was kind of like, I don't really need to go anywhere else. Like, I'm not going to shop this thing around. It's like, I know, and I've worked with them and I trust them, and I feel like this is a good fit. And it's, even though we're not a punk rock band, man, it's pretty punk rock to put out a jazz record on a punk label.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. So I was like, I love this idea, man. You know, we have to think about it, but man, now that we are here, it's like, dude, I love the idea of this. I wouldn't want to do it any other way.
Was it a hard sell to get your dad to want to do sort of ska versions of, and not traditional ska versions, obviously, but reggae versions, two-tone versions of jazz classics? Because are those considered like gospel to somebody in the jazz scene, and that it takes convincing to say, hey, let's not do it Louis Armstrong style. Let's do it this way. Let's not do it like Coletrane. Let's do it like
I feel like there are some musicians that are purists, you know, that for my dad, it's not like that. My dad is, he's totally game for, he's been trying to do different versions of, like, he would always do My Funny Valentine. He'd be like, yeah, let's not do My Funny Valentine. Let's do My Funky Valentine. I'm like, oh my God, Dad, like, it's so dumb. But like, yeah, he's been trying to make new arrangements, you know, for as long as I've been playing with him, you know? And so, so the idea of doing something like this, you know, is like, he just loves the idea that there's young people interested in this music, interested in his parents' music, you know, and he just loves that. He loves the idea of doing some new jazz for people, doing jazz in a different way. But it also it says something to our culture, you know, to you know, my dad and my mom, my mom's Latin culture and then my dad's American jazz culture, and putting that together with my love for Jamaican music, you can hear all those influences. At least I hope you can. You can hear the boogaloo influence. You can hear the ska and reggae influence, obviously. You can hear the jazz influence. You can hear the soul influence. Maybe you can hear a little bit of my punk rock background and the aggression on the drums and stuff like that. So yeah, I think there are some jazz purists, you know, there's a couple in the band, you know, one of the main dude who does the arrangements for this band, the sax player, Rob Dove, is a jazz purist. He teaches jazz, you know, but even he loves the idea. He's the one who coined island bop. He's like, this isn't bebop, this isn't ska and reggae, this is island bop. I'm like, that's the name of the album, you know, like, so yeah, I think that, you know, what I always tell my dad is, it doesn't matter what you're into. You have to respect what this is. You know, this is authentic music, whether it's, you know, whether you're a fan of R&B or a fan of Latin jazz, or you're, you know, whatever, you have to respect what we're doing, because we're trying to do it as authentic as possible. And if you don't, then it's not your thing. That's fine. You know, you don't have to like it, but this is a taste of what we're into, and this is, you know, how we want to present it, you know. So, and I think we're coming up with our own sound, and it's, you know, it's very unique. It's very, it's not just traditional ska, you know, it's like, like I said, there's influences in there. So it's, it's what has been in my brain for years and years and years, probably 20 years, you know.
I was going to say, it's not a throwback album, because it's not really like anything else that's in my collection anyway, but it seems like it's an album that could have started 20 years ago, when the first sort of swing, jazz, big band and ska were kind of like overlapping. So you'd get a lot of those weird shows like Cherry Poppin' Daddies and Royal Crown Review would play together.
Right.
So you can, it's kind of that, there's sort of a fusion of that, plus the island influences, which is like a whole other thing as well. But it seems like it could have come from that late 90s sort of, when that sort of ember started burning.
Right. That's exactly. So that's actually something that was a concern, where I was like, I don't want people to mistake us for like, we're trying to have a resurgence of the swing thing that was happening in the 90s. Even though that, you know, that was cool too, but it's like, that came and went. And I know people are still, my wife is still loves swing music. And I just had an 11-year-old drum student come to me like 2 weeks ago and be like, do you know anything about swing music? Can you teach me how to play swing? And I'm like, what? But, so it's
that's an 11-year-old with parents who are like 41 years old.
Exactly. It's exactly what it is. And, so it's, you know, it's funny that, you know, I said that to Pirates Press too, like, hey, you know, I want to be careful on what songs we promote. You know, I don't want people to think we're just another swing band and then pass us by. But then it's like, at the same time, they could say the same thing about ska, like, oh, it's just another ska band, get rid of it, you know. So it's like, I don't think we, you know, the idea for us is like, yeah, we would love to play ska shows, and we'd love to open for Social Distortion, and I think that could work. And then we'd love to play Playboy Jazz Festival, and you know, and that could work too. We would love to play Sierra Nevada World Music Festival. I don't know if that's still a thing, but
I don't know,
you know, and it would still work, you know. And so that's kind of the idea, where it's like, man, if you put us on stage with Brian Setzer Orchestra, it would go over well. If you put us on stage with Social Distortion, it would probably, we might have some people like, what is this? But it would go over well, you know? And I think that's kind of the idea of like, hey, you know, if you listen to records, if you collect records, whether it's hip hop or whether it's, you know, Latin stuff, or whether it's deep funk or Northern soul or punk rock or whatever, you kind of got to respect that this is, at some point you've heard something that sounds like what we do, you know, so that's where we're at, where it's like, man, there's something in this for everyone. And if it's not your thing, then we totally respect that. That's totally fine. But
at the very least, if you take nothing else from listening to it, it's a fun record to dance around your house to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, there's a reason the press release says something about put your dancing shoes on or whatever.
Right.
Like, it's that kind of, even if you don't know the history, if you don't know Coletrane, if you don't know Nat King Cole, it's like it's a fun record to listen to in your house.
That's great. Yeah, that's the best compliment, you know, for us. We appreciate that, because that's what we wanted. That's what we were going for. Let's make jazz danceable again. You know? So
hey, thanks for doing this. I don't want to I try to keep things under an hour, because I know people don't like to spend that kind of time.
It's all good, man. So no problem.
Thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate this. I should have had a drummer on the show much earlier.
It's all good, man. I really appreciate it, first of all, but I totally get it. I have a podcast as well, and all we do is have drummers on. So I'm always like, man, I wish we could have somebody else on, you know, but that's all we do. So
when I started doing this, one of the things that I wanted to do is make sure that I'm not talking to just like flannel wearing bearded white guys, because I like I know like that's what I am, right?
Yeah.
Like, but then I look through the songs on my phone or whatever. I'm like, boy, I listen to a lot of flannel wearing bearded white guys.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it's not just by default. That's what it ends up turning into. I'm like, but that's such a narrow, like, such a narrow focus.
See, but flannel wearing white guy, bearded white guy sounds like a podcast I would probably listen to.
Right?
So yeah, you're probably on the right track.
Time to rebrand, I guess.
Yeah.
I called the little show that I do Both Laugh because I used to do print interviews, and I like capturing rather than just print a transcript of what we wrote. I'd like to put in the little inflections, and like when somebody pauses for effect, or when both of us are laughing at a question, because then you really get a sense of what the dialogue is. And people would comment. There was a girl that used to work for Dying Scene that went through my interviews for a while and counted the amount of times that I put both laugh in an interview. But to me, that shows that like you're having a good conversation. It's not just like reciting questions and whatever. And I said, you know what, that would be if I ever wrote a book or did a podcast, I'd have to call it Both Laugh because
that's cool.
That's what you end up doing. So
I love that.
Maybe flannel wearing bearded white guys.
You might get the wrong kind of guy though.
I know. Not like the pickup truck driving guy. Like not that.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this, Korey. This is
no problem.
And
really appreciate you guys having me, man.
Yeah, hopefully everybody checks out Island Bop. It's a really, really, really fun record. Not just because I said so, but Skippy from Pirates Press says so, and he knows these things.
Right on.
Thanks for doing this.